what's going on, everyone? It is Chris, and welcome back to once again another episode of ManicManiac predicts the 2016 NFL season, the regular season finale. How is everyone doing today? I am so excited for this Sunday as the final 16 games of the regular season are all being played out. Some of them mean something, some of them don't. But it is so exciting because that means we are a little over a week away from playoff time, and it's the best time of year. I love January football, as I just love football in general. But still, you still got the college football championship coming up. The college football playoff this Saturday, but NFL football is never better than this time around. The early Christmas Day, that Ravens-Steelers game had a feeling of a playoff game, and it kind of was for the Ravens, who unfortunately dropped the ball, and the Steelers ended up winning the AFC North. Ravens were eliminated. So it is an exciting time to be a football fan, and let's get into our kickoff topic. Unfortunately, it's not really that exciting of a time to be a Raiders fan. Well, I guess it still is, but it came a little bit of a hit. It had a little bit of a hit on Saturday when Derek Carr went down with a broken fibula. Now, that was not the only injury that happened, major injury. You also had Marcus Mariota go down with the same injury, and you had Tyler Lockett, who has been a very important asset to the Seattle Seahawks. He went down with a broken leg, and all three of them will be out of the season. But for the Raiders, Derek Carr has been the center of this team, has been the face of this team. It's now having to go through the playoffs without him is going to be very tough. And there's so much at stake for the Raiders, so much at stake still going into this week. And the fact that they finally made it to the playoffs is a big deal, and you have to be happy for them. But will they be able to keep on going without Matt McGloin? Now, I will say this, and I feel like a lot of people are saying, well, all right, so the AFC is a crapshoot. The Patriots are probably going to win the whole thing, and you all may be very, very much right. But just don't give up on the AFC playoffs completely, because we still have some exciting football left, and I still think the Raiders are in it. I think you still have people around Matt McGloin that have been making big plays all year, and while he only threw three passes, and only two of them were caught, he had some pretty nice throws. And I think it is worth knowing that not only does Matt McGloin have the receivers that he does with Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree, although I think Crabtree got hurt, so we're not too sure about that. But the running game for the Raiders is getting better. That offensive line has, I think, a few Pro Bowlers on there. And you have a defense that's been led by Khalil Mack and Bruce Irving. You have all these pieces still to help you in the playoffs. I don't think this is a one-and-done team. Do I think that they're Super Bowl bound? I think that might be stretching it at this point. They could have been, maybe with Derek Carr, but at this point, you never know what could happen. They may end up being in the Super Bowl. Who knows? You can never really predict. I mean, I know there's a prediction show, but anything that can happen in this league. So I'm not going to count the Raiders out, and neither should you. And you should not, give up on the AFC just because the Patriots right now look like the best team. They are, for sure, but there are so many teams that could bring them down, that have an opportunity to bring them down in the playoffs. I'm not giving up on them yet, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward. I'm just so excited for it, so I'm not giving up on it yet. So, another kickoff topic that I want to go to, I wanted to explain a little bit of what is actually at stake for this weekend. What exactly are we looking for? Which games are very important to watch? So in case anyone's not really doesn't really know the usual format, CBS and Fox, they host the 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock games, but usually each week it's either CBS or Fox that host a doubleheader, and that's been true for the 16 weeks. This week, because of how big of a deal Week 17 is, both CBS and Fox will have doubleheader games, so you'll see more football than you've seen all season on Sunday. So what do you want to watch? Which games do you want to see? It might depend. You might get a local team that is not really that good, but maybe if you flip the channel, you'll see an important playoff game or playoff implication game that you'll be wanting to see. So you got a lot of options here. So what games do you want to be watching? Well, let me just show you who has to play for what. So we're going to start here with the Patriots and Raiders. These guys are still competing for the number 1 seed in the AFC. A win by the Patriots over the Miami Dolphins will clinch the number 1 seed for New England. A win by the Raiders and a loss by the Patriots would get the Raiders in. They're facing the Broncos on Sunday. So Raiders have an opportunity to clinch the AFC West and get the number 1 seed as long as the Patriots lose to the Dolphins. So, and hey, you never know. You have they're going to the Dolphins, and they haven't actually won in Miami in a few years. So, we'll see what happens with that. Next up, the Raiders again and the Chiefs. These guys are competing for the number 2 spot. So, the Raiders are not guaranteed a bye right now, and they're not even guaranteed the division. These guys are playing for the division, and whoever wins the division will get the number 2 seed. If not, they will have at least the 5 seed. At least for the Raiders, they'll have at least the 5 seed, and it's basically the difference of at least hosting a game and being on the road for all the playoffs. So it's definitely a tough competition. The Raiders, all they have to do is win and they're in. If the Kansas City Chiefs win their game, Raiders lose to the Broncos, KC will represent the AFC West and will be hosting an Arrowhead in the divisional round. Raiders will be going on the road. So, we'll see what happens with that. The Chiefs are playing the Chargers, so that's not likely that they'll end up losing that game, but you never know. Again, you never know in this league. Next up, Chiefs-Dolphins. These guys are playing for a wild card spot, specifically number 5. So, you can either choose to go against the Texans or go against the Steelers. I don't know about you, but I would want to take on the Texans in the first round. So the Dolphins are trying to beat the Patriots, and have the Chiefs lose to the Chargers. That would get the Dolphins to Houston. If not, Kansas City, with a win, will be heading to Houston in the first round. Unless the Raiders lose their game, then the Chiefs are going to be the number 2 seed. Raiders will be heading to Houston, and the Dolphins will still be heading to Pittsburgh. So, a lot of messed up shit, right? A lot of stuff going on in the AFC. Let's move on to the NFC. A lot more at stake as playoff spots still have not been grabbed. First of all, the Packers and Lions Sunday Night Football game is huge. It is what will decide the NFC North. And we don't really know where the NFC North seed will be right now. We don't know if that's going to be the 2 seed or the 4 seed. It's still all over the place. But the Packers right now are looking like... the Packers right now look like the favorite. But, again, who knows? The Lions are hosting this game. First time that they'll be home in a few weeks. So, it's going to be a good one. The last time that these guys faced each other in Detroit, it was the Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary game. So, you never know what could happen. It's going to be fun. Now, the Falcons, Lions, and Seahawks are competing for the number 2 seed right now. Any number of things can happen. And by the way, between the Packers and Lions, that basically whoever wins is the NFC North champion. I think I made that clear, but I just wanted to make sure. So, here's the situation. The Atlanta Falcons currently have the number 2 seed. If they win, they get it. It's as simple as that. If they lose and Detroit beats the Packers, as far as I know, they'll be 10-6. I have to double check what the Seahawks records are. So, just give me a second for that. Alright, so correction. So, the Falcons, if they win, they will clinch the number 2 seed, and then if not, if the Seahawks win their game, they will be the number 2 seed. But if not that, if both the Falcons and Seahawks lose and the Detroit Lions win their game, then the Lions will be the number 2 seed in the conference, which is actually pretty insane that if both the Falcons and the Seahawks lose their respective games, that the Lions, who could basically be out of the playoffs next week, could also be the number 2 seed. So that's the order, essentially. Falcons, then Seahawks, then Lions. And if all of them lose their games, well, then the Falcons will be the number 2 seed at that point. Or if and if the Packers win, I think the Packers will, no matter what, be the number 4 seed. Seahawks will be number 3, and then the Falcons will be number 2. So that's that situation. But now, here comes the most important of all of them. You have the Washington Redskins still competing for a spot, the Packers, and the Lions. These guys have yet to clinch a playoff berth. So here's what's going to happen. The first game for any of these guys will be the Washington Redskins taking on the Giants. It's a huge game because a win will pretty much clinch it for them. There is a scenario where if they win and then the Packers and Lions tie later that night, that both the Packers and Lions would get into the playoffs and the Redskins would be left out of it. I don't think that's going to happen. That would be insane. I would not personally like that. I think that I just hate ties in general. But if the Redskins win, it will force the Packers and Lions to play an even more high-stakes game where whichever one loses will be sent home and the winner moves on to the playoffs. It'll become a de facto playoff game. And that's what I personally want to see happen. I even though I am a Giants fan, but I don't mind if the Giants lose because they don't really have anything at stake. If the Giants lose that game and then Redskins win, and then it comes down to Packers versus Lions for the final playoff spot, that's awesome. There's nothing better than that, to have an early playoff gift. It's great. So that is all of your scenarios right there. I hope I did kind of a good job explaining it. It is chaotic, and we don't really know what exactly is going to be the end result, but I'm gonna predict my games, and then I'll show you guys what the results I predict will basically what will it result in. So let's get into it. Let's get into our predictions. Alright, so first, before we get to our picks, we should talk about our record. 155 correctly picked games, and then you got 83 that weren't, and obviously 2 that ended in ties. So now, looking at this record, I'm almost certain it's better than where I was last year. In fact, I think our record was around 140 when we finished it all out. I will double check that for next week's episode, our first playoff episode, where we begin our recap of the regular season and our predictions for the playoffs. So that is our record. Look, I'm feeling good about it. I've been kicking butt all season. I think I've only had 1 or 2 bad weeks. And 10-6 this past week is not too bad at all. So let's jump into our predictions. This is in the order of NFL.com, not in order of importance. So I apologize that we're going to start with the Ravens and Bengals, which means absolutely nothing. So the Ravens lost the Sunday game, and it's a huge blow to them. But they showed a lot of potential this season, and they just need to grow, and I think ultimately they need to start getting possibly drafting for more replacements at the wide receiver position. Even though Steve Smith Sr. continues to play so well, he might be retiring after this year for all we know. He might keep on going until he actually wins that Super Bowl. Who knows? But they need help at the wide receiver position still. I mean, they have been they've had Mike Wallace with them. They had Brashard Perryman, but you can't really just trust those guys. You need more receivers and more relief off of Joe Flacco, and also the secondary. Eric Weddle has definitely improved that secondary, but I think it can get even better. But that's always been an issue for the Ravens since we're like Eric Reed left and all that. So who knows? We'll see what happens with that. And the Bengals, a disappointing year, a year that they could have made the playoffs. I mean, I kind of felt like they weren't going to make the playoffs. My early season predictions had them out of the playoffs. I didn't expect this season to be really bad for them. I expected them to at least really be like in the running for it, and they just weren't near the end. And they could have played spoiler a few times, but just couldn't get the job done. They lost to the Steelers. They lost to the Texans. And now, to me, this is a game that I think it can go either way. But I'm going to say the better team all around has been the Ravens, and I'm going to go with them. All right, next up we got the Texans at the Titans. It could have been the AFC South title game, but the Texans clinched that last week after winning over the Bengals, and then the Titans losing. As I mentioned earlier, Marcus Mariota went down with a broken fibula, will be out for this game. And it's unfortunate. The Titans were rolling. The Titans could have gotten here. It looked like they were going to end up losing to Jacksonville anyway, even if Marcus Mariota didn't win it. But they had so much potential going down the stretch to make it into the playoffs, and unfortunately, it just couldn't get done. Now I'm just rooting for not a Chiefs at Texans matchup. I do not want to see that again. Not another Chiefs at Texans matchup. That's all I wish for the playoffs, really. But yeah, I just, to me, this game now, it doesn't matter. And I think the better team with Tom Savage, even though he didn't really play that well that last week, I think the Texans will still get the job done now that Marcus Mariota won't be there to try to knock off the Texans a little bit. So I'm going with Texans. All right, Panthers at the Buccaneers. And the Buccaneers, I didn't bring this up in the intro because I felt like it's impossible at this point. But the Buccaneers still have a chance, which includes a variety of different scenarios to happen. Last year, I know I explained how the Colts could still get in. I don't think I'm going to do it this year because one of those scenarios includes the 49ers knocking off the Seahawks, and I just don't think that's going to happen. And one of the scenarios also includes the Giants and the Redskins tying. To me, if all that happens and more and everything else, everything falls the Buccaneers' way, including a win over the Carolina Panthers, that would be one hell of a, luck sprinkled just victory for the Buccaneers, that they can somehow still make the playoffs. They have less than 1% chance of doing so. So I didn't talk about that scenario because I don't think it's gonna happen, but who knows? I am going with the Buccaneers in this because they still have a pulse, but I don't think it's gonna be lasting very long. All right, Browns at the Steelers. This game, to me, there's no way that the Browns are going to knock off the Steelers this time. Even if the Steelers rest starters, I mean, at this point they have locked up the number 3 seed. They're not going to be better than that. They're not going to get worse from that. So they could rest starters, but I think this team has... I don't think the Browns have it in them to win another game this year after giving it their all in a victory over the San Diego Chargers. Congrats to the Browns, by the way. Fantastic that they finally got a win, and it actually didn't hurt them. This game does have stakes, by the way. This game does have stakes because if the Browns lose, they clinch the number 1 overall pick in the 2017 NFL Draft. If the Browns win this game and the 49ers end up losing to the Seattle Seahawks, then the 49ers will take hold of the number 1 pick. So a lot is at stake for the Browns here. So maybe go for the loss. I'm going with the Steelers. All right, Cowboys at Eagles. You have to wonder if they're going to continue not resting starters. At this point, I don't think it's worth the risk. I think they kind of had to start people against the Lions because the Lions, they are a playoff team. You want to show that you can dominate a potential playoff team, rather. So they definitely showed it. They absolutely dominated them, and I think this week they should absolutely rest starters. Regardless of that, I just think the Cowboys will still beat the Eagles, and I'm also kind of bitter about the Eagles beating the Giants, but it was kind of, I hinted at that fact happening last week, so I think it could happen. I thought it could happen, and it ended up doing so. I think the Cowboys can beat the Eagles, and I don't see the Eagles doing the same to the Cowboys. Would be, I guess if they rest almost everyone, then yes, it could happen, but we'll see what happens. Jason Garrett seems aggressive in that sense, to not bench people. Bills and Jets. This game last year, Week 17, had a lot more at stake. This time, not really. The Jets were god-awful last week and have been god-awful all season long, and it's a real disappointment for them that they had the season like they did. I talked about this a little bit on Twitter, but as someone who roots for the Jets and the Bills, but specifically for the Jets, it's been a rough year for both squads, and for me, I don't see, after the way that the Jets have had their locker room situation, and just how their performance has been on the field, just the overall lack of effort, I do not see Todd Bowles returning. It wouldn't shock me if he kept his job. In fact, I would prefer him to keep his job because I think that would be great for the Jets. I think he's still a head coach, a good head coach. It's just that this year people are just not doing their work. But I think that a little bit can be a product of the head coach. So it would not surprise me to see him gone. Meanwhile, the Bills, they gave up so many rushing yards to running backs the past few weeks, and it is unbelievable that Rex Ryan comes in and fixes the Bills offense but hurts the defense. It's strange to me, and I think the Rex Ryan's gonna be out of Buffalo this Monday, Black Monday. Apparently it's gonna be a massacre this year. Some reports saying that as many as 7 to 8 openings will be, which I think is equal to the past few years, but that's still a lot. That's still a quarter of the league not having an opening for head coaching positions. That's gonna be big. We'll see what happens. We'll see how many head coaches that are fired that get rehired by another team. We'll see what happens. But to me, these two teams I think will be head coachless after this game. So with that being said, I am going to go with the Jets for this one. Kind of one of those games where I feel like the Jets, after getting beat by Buffalo, twice last year, I think the Jets get the sweep here. So good stuff, I guess. All right, Bears have Vikings. Vikings were still alive last week, but got eliminated in virtue of a Packers dominating win over them. And the Bears looked like they found their quarterback of the future, and then he throws 5 picks. It did not look good. Of course, it was against a potential playoff team with the Redskins, but not really something that you want to look forward to in a quarterback. This is a rough situation for the Bears, because do they want to go for the sweep over the Vikings, or do they want to get better position in the draft? It will be interesting to see what they decide here. I'm going to go with the Vikings. They've been fantastic at home. That's how I feel. Jaguars at Colts. We're really getting through all the meaningless matchups. Sorry, we'll get to the good stuff soon. Oh shit, did not mean to change that. Oh, there you go. Jaguars at Colts. This is a matchup between two teams that the Colts could still actually get into second place in the AFC South, so that's good, right? Andrew Luck continues to play great, but the rest of his team doesn't, and that's really disappointing. I think that this is going to lead to a surprise firing in Chuck Pagano. I just feel like this is a team that has constantly been like, this is a Super Bowl team. With Andrew Luck at the helm, it's gonna work out. But then they don't get it done, and it sucks. After going to the AFC Championship game, In 2014, they haven't been back for the past few years. It might be time for some change in Indianapolis and get some people on defense. Continue getting some more playmakers on offense. It's a lot of that stuff is really needed right now for Indianapolis to keep on building a great team. They've been up and down constantly, so this is it really has been like an up and down season for the Colts. So they really need some consistency somewhere. The Jaguars, in the meantime, forgot to mention this. Doug Marrone, former Buffalo Bills coach, took the realm of the Jaguars in an interim role after Gus Bradley got fired. And Blake Bortles actually looked good last week against the Tennessee Titans in a victory. And I did not see a lot of it, but what I did see, I was just like, wow, Blake Bortles actually might have been held back by Gus Bradley, which is insane to me. He needs a really great offensive coach to come in, and maybe Doug Marrone's the guy, because Marrone had well, maybe not, because Marrone didn't have that great of an offense in Buffalo, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see where it is once we get to the hiring time. But I think they need a quarterback coach. They need a quarterback guru to save Blake Bortles, because he seemed like he had so much potential coming into the season, and it all went to shit basically by like week 5, week 6. Actually, I think those were the 2 weeks he won games. So who knows? I just, who knows at this point? But it does not look good right now, or it did not look good prior to this game, how Blake Bortles has panned out. But we'll see what happens. Maybe he actually becomes a franchise quarterback and kicks everyone that doubted him to the curb. Who knows? All right, Patriots at Dolphins. This is the biggest game of the 1 o'clock session. These are two playoff teams. Two teams that are going to be moving on to the next round. One is trying to compete for the number 1 seed. The other is trying to compete for the number 5 seed. So these guys both need wins. And the Dolphins are going to need a little help from the Chargers in order for the Chiefs, or for the Chargers to beat the Chiefs. And if the Dolphins win, they'll take the number 5 seed. Patriots just need a win in order to be the number 1 seed in the league. So this is going to be a good game. There's so much at stake for it. Anything can happen, I think, because being in Miami has been a little bit of an issue for the Patriots. But who knows? Maybe this year is different. Maybe they finally have a good game and kick the Miami Dolphins' ass. I think that's what's going to happen. I see New England Patriots win, but I would not be surprised if the Dolphins do it again. It will be interesting. All right, here's that game that we're talking about: Chiefs and Chargers. I think this is the Jenga piece of the AFC right here. All right, this will decide. Whoever the result is will decide how the playoff picture will pan out between the Raiders, the Dolphins, and the Chiefs. Will the Chargers, after losing to the Browns, maybe give extra effort in beating the Chiefs, who in week 1 came back from a 30-point deficit, 31-point deficit, and just rolled over the Chargers in the second half. It was the Chargers were that team this year that was constantly giving up leads. Can they build it up early against the Chiefs and keep them down? I think there is a chance that it could happen. I think after losing to Cleveland last week, I think it is important to note that this team might have a lot of hatred in their hearts for how they performed last week. They could come in, and it's a home game. Who knows? That didn't really change the Raiders at Chargers game a few weeks ago when the Raiders took over the stadium. But anyways, regardless, the home field advantage with a lot of hatred in their heart from the loss to the Browns of all teams. Can they have the Chiefs come in here and they blow them away? Who knows? I'm picking the Chiefs, though. Just think that's a more likely scenario. Cardinals at Rams. Another useless game. Both teams are out of it. Rams are looking to the future, and God, are they hoping 2017 comes soon. A terrible loss to the Niners. It was a close one, but it was a bad loss nonetheless. You don't want to lose to a team twice in the same season, let alone a team that their only 2 wins all season has been to your team. That's not a good thing. And they need to find someone that will help Jared Goff grow. Again, they're going to need another offensive proud coach. So we'll see what happens with them. I say we'll see what happens a lot, don't I? I say that. I say this is a game. I say to me a lot. It's things that you notice when you're just talking to a screen for a while. And I know my the constant phrases gets annoying, but that's just something I have in mind. But so that's the Rams side of it. The Cardinals side of it, really disappointing year for them. I was expecting them to get back to the playoffs this year. That didn't happen. And now it's looking like, there might be a chance that Larry Fitzgerald is not going to return for them. And Carson Palmer is someone that people have said that Carson Palmer has kind of regressed this year. A little bit. He definitely has a little bit, but I don't think he's completely terrible quarterback category. He's just not as great of a quarterback as he was last year, and he had an amazing year in 2015. We can't really say that he's a terrible quarterback just because he's not as good as 2015. With that being said, can they get back to the level that they had in 2015, where they were on the brink of the Super Bowl before being blown out by the Panthers? I don't know. It really, there's a lot of questions at hand for them. But I'm going to go with the Cardinals in this game. At least they ended off in a high note, and hopefully this won't be the last game for Larry Fitzgerald. I'd love to see him back. All right, here's another important game. Raiders at the Broncos. Broncos have nothing to play for but integrity. Their integrity was stripped from them when Dontre Poe, a defensive lineman of the Chiefs, threw a touchdown pass into the end zone on a wide open receiver. That's depressing. That's just depressing, especially how good this defense has been the past few years. The fact that happened, you let that happen. That is just putting your integrity away to a place that you can't get it. But you could get it this week. The Raiders are kind of down right now. They lost their quarterback. Can the Broncos at home stop a Raiders team that has been hot, but unfortunately have now had a major setback? I think it's going to happen. I think the Broncos, despite all their struggles that they've had lately, I think that they'll bounce back in a great way and take down the Raiders, and will basically end their bye hopes, give the Chiefs the AFC West title, and the Raiders will be heading... Well, it'll be a nice gift, though, because the Raiders will get to head to Houston in the first round. All right. Here's the big NFC game of the day before Packers and Lions, okay? This is a must-win game for Washington. If they lose, they're out of it. They are out of it. There's no way they can get in. They are in a position where the two teams they have two teams in front of them right now that have 9 wins. These guys only have 8 wins. If they lose, then that's it. They can't. The Packers and Lions would clinch playoff berths at that point. So what else is at stake here? It's basically actually there's nothing else at stake. It's winning they're in. So for the Giants, will they be able to go on the road and knock the Washington Redskins out of playoff contention, or will the Redskins sweep the New York Giants and become the 6th wild card? I think they do. I think the Washington Redskins, because they've had the Giants number for the past two times they faced each other. I think that the Giants, with their offensive struggles that they had on Thursday, that'll come up. But the Giants also have the edge in how long they've been preparing for the Redskins since last Thursday. So who knows? Who knows? I'm going with Washington, though. Oh, whoops. Washington. All right. Seattle Seahawks at the San Francisco 49ers. This game is actually big for both teams because one is trying to get to the number 1 overall pick. The Seahawks are trying to get back into being in a bye situation where they're the number 2 seed. And both teams have the same intentions. The Seahawks want to beat the 49ers, and the 49ers want to lose to the Seahawks. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe it would be, an integrity thing for the Niners that they want to not only beat the Rams last week, but then beat the big bad Seahawks this week. Maybe it could happen, but if that happens and the Niners beat the Seahawks, oh boy, the Seahawks are in trouble. They are in some deep shit if that happens. With that being said, I'm going with the Seahawks. I have complete faith in them that they'll get the job done. All right, Saints at the Falcons. This was what this game alone could decide who the number 2 seed is. If the Falcons win, they're in. But the Saints have played spoiler the past few weeks. They took out the Cardinals, took them out of playoff contention, even though the chances were slim anyway. But then they upset the Bucs, and the Buccaneers were knocked out, essentially out of playoff contention. And so, can the Saints knock out the Falcons out of bye contention? That is going to be the big question. They have to go on the road to do it, but the Falcons have a worse record at home than they do on the road. So I don't know if it's a guarantee or not. I'm going to go with the Falcons, but who knows what's going to happen. All right, here's the final game, and it could be a biggie. According to my predictions, this is the de facto playoff game. Win, and you host a game. Lose, and you go home. That is as big of stakes as you can have in a regular season game. And it's going to be a good one. Good offensive battle. Defense optional, probably. Think about that. You know, the Lions allowed 42 points against the Cowboys, and the Packers have had trouble on defense all season long, so who really knows? But to me, the way that the Packers have been playing, they've had so much momentum. The Lions are they've lost their last 2. You know, it's tough to go. It's good that you're hosting the game, but it's tough to stop a hot team when you're not doing so hot yourself. With that being said, it absolutely could go the Lions' way, but I am going with the Packers to win the division, knock out the Detroit Lions, and a huge turnaround for Green Bay, who looked like they were out of it a few weeks ago. And that is the end. But hold on a second. We got to address this. This was my preseason playoff predictions, and I'm very proud of the way I predicted the AFC. The Patriots, number 1 seed. They have a good shot at being the number 1 seed. The Steelers, they were not the number 2. The Chiefs have a shot at number 2. Might be the Raiders. According to my predictions, I'm going to just go ahead and move some of this stuff around. So according to my predictions now, the Chiefs would be number 2. Steelers would be number 3. Texans number 4. Raiders number 5. And then Dolphins will replace the Ravens at number 6. And then we look over here at the NFC, and oh boy, that is the Cardinals, the Panthers. Oh god, it's a mess. It is a mess. But let's get rid of the Cardinals and Panthers real quick. They're not going to be needed. All right, so the Panthers are going to move all the way down here to the number 4 seed. Redskins will fall to number 6. Giants will fall to number... I thought this was going to be the one that I got wrong, that the Giants were actually going to make the playoffs, because I felt like I was really going out on a limb there, but apparently their defense has proven to be effective. Seahawks will remain at the 3rd seed. We get to see Lambeau and Central Link Field for the wild card round. If this stays true, that would be fantastic. And then the two teams that might be the 1 and 2 seed did not predict that they would make the playoffs: Falcons and the Cowboys. That's pretty good. I'll make sure to make this a little bit more neat. There you go. So that's my playoff picture predictions. You got the Raiders hosting the Texans. I'm sorry, the Texans hosting the Raiders. The Steelers hosting the Dolphins. Giants traveling to Green Bay, and the Redskins traveling to Seattle. Now, I have not been around since the Redskins have taken on the Seahawks. In the past few years. Apparently, the Redskins do not have a good record against Seattle. I don't know. I could be wrong about that. But it'll be new to me. It'll be a new matchup to me, and I won't mind watching it. So I think it will be an intriguing matchup, because you have a really good offense for the Redskins going against a really good defense. And a defense that has had issues with the Redskins, but have a lot of playmakers, and a Seattle offense that have their own share of issues, but that they're getting it together themselves as well. So I think that's an intriguing matchup in general. But we'll talk more about playoff games and playoff scenarios when we get down to it. This will probably not be the final playoff picture, but it'll be nice if I predicted that. That would be cool. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you guys next week for our first playoff show, and our good friend Go Cubs 711 will join us for playoff picks. It'll be great. It'll be a lot of fun. I'll see you guys then. Be good to one another. Be kind to one another. Bye-bye.